Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 2. Today, we are going to talk about Environmental Management Accounting, EMA, and climate change. My name is Balqis binti Ahmad Anuar.
My name is Amirul Zain. Now, let's look for the introduction of EMA.
So, let's recap on what Group 1 has been explained about EMA. EMA is actually concerned with a company internal costs and places a specific emphasis on accounting for environmental costs. EMA includes not only environmental and other cost information, but also explicit information on material and energy flows and feeds. Let's move on to the benefit of EMA. Track and manage the use and flows of energy and materials, which includes pollution or waste volumes, types, and feed more accurately. Second one is help organizations to identify, estimate, allocate, and manage or reduce costs, especially environmental types of costs more accurately. The third one is implementation of EMA by industry can help in improving the effectiveness of existing government policies or regulation by revealing to businesses the true environmental costs and benefit of those policies or regulations. The last one is help in improving company image with stakeholders such as customer, local communities, employees, government, and finance providers, since EMA provides accurate and comprehensive information for the measurement and reporting of environmental performance. So the challenges is communication or links between accounting and other departments often not well developed. Environment-related cost information is often hidden in overhead accounts. Material use, flow, and cost information often is not tracked adequately. Many types of environmentally related cost information are not found in the accounting records. Last but not least is investment decisions are often made on the basis of incomplete information.
Now, let's focus to the climate change. What is climate change? Climate change refers to a long-term change in temperature and weather patterns. This shift could be caused by natural causes such as variation in the solar cycle. However, since the early 18th, human activity have been the primary cause of climate change, owing primarily to the use of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and gas. Now, let's look for the greenhouse. Greenhouse gases are gases that trap heat in the atmosphere. The amount of particular gas in the air refers to as a concentration or abundance. Higher concentration in the atmosphere result from increased greenhouse gas emission. Each of the gases has a different period of time in the atmosphere, ranging from a few years to thousands of years. Because of all of these gases stay in the atmosphere long enough to get well mixed. The amount measured in the atmosphere is nearly the same all around the world, independent of the source of emission. Now, let's focus issue regarding greenhouse in Malaysia. The first issue is global warming. Global warming refers to the rise in global average temperature. This is where climate change comes in. Peninsular Malaysia record a higher temperature increase than East Malaysia. Malaysia become hotter with the temperature rise up to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. Because companies all over the global rely heavily on the combustion of fossil fuel to power their operations, it is widely assumed that the business sector is one of the primary contributors to global warming. Air pollution caused by greenhouse gas emission has become a big issue. Industries such as iron and steel, metal, mineral, oil and gas, petrochemical, pulp and paper power plants, and other are important producers of GHG emission in Malaysia. One of the effects of global warming is drought, declining water supplies.
Let's move on to the human health. Climate change affects human health through extreme events of fire, flood, and heat waves. Some environmental parameters could also be indirectly affected by climate. In Malaysia, direct impact of climate change could be deaths caused by heat stress and respiratory disease due to air pollution, whilst indirect impact which could be increased food and waterborne disease are also non-exceptions. Due to indirect health effects of climate change, food and waterborne disease may arise which can cause diarrheal disease due to a variety of organisms such as Escherichia coli, Vibrio chlorella, Salmonella, and viruses. In increase of rainfall, high transmission of dengue could occur, which may result in increase of vector-borne disease such as malaria and dengue fever. Greenhouse gases (GHGs) could cause negative impacts to humans. Long-term high concentration exposure would be harmful. It may affect multiple different organs primarily including respiratory system, cardiovascular system, central nervous system, immune system, digestive system, and also reproductive system. Between 2030 and 2050, approximately 250,000 additional deaths per year are expected caused by climate change due to malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, and also heat stress.
For the third issue is heavy rainfall. Heavy rainfall refers to a period when the amount of rain or snow falling in a specific place is significantly greater than average. Greenhouse gas warming leading to a moister atmosphere where the water vapor increases. Warmer ocean cause more water to evaporate into the air. More evaporating air can produce more intense rainfall such as heavy rain. Heavy rain often cause flood and landslide and result in natural disaster. Flood risk has been influenced by human-caused greenhouse gas emission. Warmer air means more water vapor, which is a greenhouse gas itself worsening the situation. What goes up must go down. And in extreme rainfall event, water vapor is increasingly falling down. The service and manufacturing industry both low as a result of the increased number of days within rain. Increased rain may cause transportation delays, material shortage, causing package delivery to be delayed and employees are not being able to get to work on time. The tourism industry could be harmed as a result of flooding and landslide that render sections of several main roads impassable. The impact is crop damage, soil erosion, and increase in flood owing to heavy rain are all potential effects of heavy rainfall, which can cause injuries, drowning, and other flooding-related health problems. Furthermore, flow from rainfall can cause damage to building and infrastructure.
Let's move on to land cover change. Land cover change is loss of natural areas, especially forests. The forests comprise by 30% from the earth, so these changes of land cover may affect human being activities and the ecosystem function. Fortunately, the forest response to climate change is complex and their effects takes time. If there are too many of these greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, the Earth's atmosphere will begin to trap more and more heat. As a result, the soil will dry up and making it difficult for plants to compete. Another driver greenhouse in land cover change is disease infestations on forest plantation species. Some types of land require a unique weather characteristic. For example, mangrove need a humid weather with increase in sun exposures, many plants will get disease. This has impacted the manufacturing industry. Land is one of natural resources for business. Reduction in land composition on Earth has reduced the resources. Forests contain most of the resources such as woods. A factory also requires a strong and compacted soil. However, climate change may cause the soil erosions and sinkholes. Therefore, the factory has to spend on materials expenses on all the damage occur. Worst case, they have to move out to continue the production. Let's take a look on the role of management accounting in supporting adaptation to climate changes. Management accounting role helps organizations adapt to climate changes by providing several functions: costing, reporting, and disclosure of effects, vulnerabilities, and adaptive capability, which will need to be the responsibility of management accounting. Management accounting also needs to do the strategic planning and general. So there are three functions, which is that risk and assessment functions, value functions, and disclosure functions.
Risk assessment function is a climatic change risk assessment examine the possibility of future climate risks and their possible implication on cities and communities. The objective of risk assessment is to analyze the vulnerability and adaptation capability of climate change. Management accounting has a role to play as a risk assessment function. In the case of greenhouse environment, management accounting must mitigate the effect of climate change and determine how vulnerable value creating activities are as a result. While adaptive capacity is true to be vital for adapting an organization to future climate effect and hazard. For an example, management accounting should be able to analyze and evaluate the potential hazard risks from the greenhouse gases which will harm human health. Once problems have been adequately diagnosed, the issue of minimizing or avoiding health risks can turn to suitable intervention. Management accounting should examine and analyze the potential for substantial risk of the heavy rainfall effect from the greenhouse gases. Management accounting should consider all the possible implications on cities and communities that can cause injuries, drowning, and other flooding related health problems.
Second one is valuation function, which is that it refers to understanding of adaptation costs and benefits. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) determines that the procedures for analyzing the adaptation costs and benefits are very restricted and fragmented. The adaptation measures can be successful by determining the level of future climate change, which is caused by other socio-economic factors like population growth and development in high-risk areas. Example relate is high temperature global warming. Value refers to how companies want to evaluate and estimate the climate losses and optimal discount rates for a portfolio of climate vulnerable assets. Mitigation strategies used in certain companies to reduce high temperature and global warming. One example for mitigation strategies is emissions reduction efforts that encourage resource savings directly corresponding to decreased expenditure for a resource input, while adaptation strategies are intended to deliver outcomes in the long run.
The last function is disclosure function. The disclosure function I mentioned about the disclosure of risks related to climate change implications. The institutional investor and other interest groups have been putting pressure on the organisation to disclose more about climate change due to possible material negative financial consequences and the current low disclosure rates. There are three bodies who are involved in merging the disclosure requirement for risks related to climate change impact, which are Carbon Disclosure Project (CDP), Climate Disclosure Standard Board (CDSB), and International Financial Reporting Standard (IFRS). The CDP gives a disclosure score as well as performance score that analyze the extent of action performed on climate change, while for the Climate Disclosure Standard Board (CDSB), it has established a climate change reporting framework based on non-financial information disclosure. The International Financial Reporting Standard (IFRS) has provided a wide range of risks. For example, it is expected that the company will examine and disclosure relevant and usable information regarding climate-related risks that may affect the entity. Disclosure include outside and within financial statement. For outside financial statement, there are two main climate-related risks that companies should consider, which are physical risk and transition risk. Physical risk is the risk concern connected with climate change disrupting business operations. Increase in sea level is one of the examples of physical risk. For within a financial statement, climate-related risk could have some implication on the financial statement, which include disclosure of climate-related risk. The relevant accounting standard is MFRS 101 presentation of financial statement.
So here is the recommendation. Management accounting should do the future research about climate change. It is because necessary on a variety of aspects. It is focused on best practice approaches for organizations to understand the climate impacts. Management accounting should correct errors in the report properly. So here's the reference we got for this topic. So let's move on to the Q&A session. Thank you.